They wanted me to be precisely on time. So I did. This occurred while I was still in apprenticeship at my current workplace, a few years ago. It was never really commented on by management but was internal within my department. We have an electronic time stamping system to log our work hours. When we arrive/start work, we stamp in, and when we leave, we stamp out. The logged time is then uploaded at the end of the month and our monthly worked overtime is calculated. At the time, my daily habit was, if my shift started at 12:30, I'd leave home at 12 o'clock and be at work roughly 12:15 or 12:20, depending on traffic. In really bad cases it can be 12:25. Now it's relevant to know that for every hour there are time spans in which two people have to be present at work at all times. From 12 o'clock to 12:15, 12:30 to 12:45, 1300 hours to 13:15 and so on. So, the employee could only leave his position when his replacement, in work clothes, was present and logged. That's why I was oftentimes quite early. If I arrived at, say, 12:20, I'd immediately log in, change into my work clothes, and while I did that the colleague I replace could change clothes and go home since I'd be ready at 12:30 at least. Now, there was one colleague who did not like that, mainly because I'd collect overtime for that, even though other colleagues could take that time off their schedule. So, he told me to be logged in precisely on time, at 12:30, though he wanted me to already be in my work clothes before logging in. Since we aren't allowed to wear our work clothes outside of work, including the work commute, he wanted me to be early at work to change my clothes, to send a colleague off so they could change their clothes, while still logged in, and leave for home, while myself only collecting the time my shift is. So, I did pretty much that. I'd be at work at 12:25, if I was early, I'd sit in my car in the parking lot and wait. Then at 12:25 would go in, change my clothes and stamp in, which could take more than 5 minutes to do. And because I wasn't early enough, my replacement could not leave early and would make overtime they didn't want. Of course, most colleagues didn't mind that. Nobody cares about staying 10 minutes longer, but a certain colleague did absolutely not like that. This entire thing then ended up backfiring on him, when I didn't make enough work hours, since he also demanded I log out when I'm done with work early in the evenings. So, with each week my time account would shrink and shrink. They'd have me work additional days, but they could not do that all the time because as an apprentice I wasn't allowed to work more than 5 days a week, which I already regularly did. They also could not let me work additional hours per day because as an apprentice, I wasn't legally allowed to work more than 8 hours per day either. So of course, at some point the department management asked questions on why I'm constantly missing hours, on why the apprentice is working weekends too often and why he is making 9 or 10-hour shifts. After a month, he stopped complaining about me being early, and ever since then things have worked flawlessly until Corona hit.
Now to the comments. Why were you doing what one colleague wanted at the cost of your own pay and conditions? It sounds like they were not in any sort of management position over you, so why not just ignore them and do your thing?
OP replied. Because as an apprentice, I had basically no say in anything. They were not in a management position, but were, and still is even with me being a trained employee, in a higher position within the department's hierarchy. Oh, and my refusal at first caused him to give me forced time off, as to reduce the overtime I made by being early. He doesn't act with logic and to this day doesn't, he just wants everyone to do what he wants. Edit. Now, if I get downvoted, it would be great to know why and what I did wrong.
Don't forget that these poisoned pill type of people will create a very unpleasant atmosphere while keeping themselves pretty much in the clear. You often find managers also doing what they're told by these people. In my early days at a convenience store, was a second job for me. I'd arrive early because of my military background. I was 36, co-worker was 19. As soon as I showed, he just stopped working. I stopped showing early as a result. Same theme as OP, just not quite so detailed. Just an FYI, if you have to change in and out of work clothes on the job site, that is paid time.
OP replied. Yes, this is also my opinion, though someone here on Reddit called me entitled for demanding to be paid for 3 minutes of my daily time, though the certain colleague sees things differently, will come in early, change into work clothes and only then stamp in. He's the type of everything I do is right and everyone has to do the same.
The dole has made companies pay back wages for this. I don't understand how your time is affected if you clock in at 12 and clock out 8 hours later though.
OP replied. Thing is, while my required shift is roughly 8 hours per day 5 days a week, 39-hour work week, doesn't mean I always work that many hours. With the evening shift it can happen that my shift would end at, say, 9 p.m., but I would already be done with my work at 8:15 or 8:30 p.m. If I want to keep my time record correct I can either stay till 9 p.m. and chill around, or leave early and come in the next day the same amount of time earlier to make up for it. But my colleague demanded that I be clocked in when my shift, on paper, starts, which means he'll complain a lot when I come in the missing 30 minutes early to make up for the deficit. If we assume I lose 15 minutes in the evening, and 5 minutes before the start of my shift, that's 20 minutes per day, or 1 hour 20 that are missing at the end of a week.
Oh. Okay, got it. Seems like a weird way to flex power though. Question though, didn't that bite you in the ass because you didn't get your full hours? It had to impact your apprenticeship hours. I used to be a security guard, most shifts were 12 hours either 0700 to 1900 or 1900 to 0700, it was custom to arrive 30 minutes early for handover, for the most part everyone followed this, one shift never turned up early, they arrived on time. However, by the time they got ready it was 10 minutes past, every shift they were on was like that, they would turn down the volume on the phones and alarms so nobody could hear them. The only phone they couldn't turn down was the emergency phone. It goes so bad that all routine internal calls came through the emergency phone.
That shift really pushed the envelope, but usually that time is not paid. So, why work and not get paid? Because it's custom/expected? Department of Labor says no. If you are doing work things, you must be paid before work schedule or during breaks. Even if it's putting on or taking off required uniforms and PPEs, it must be paid. People just accept it as not paid. People need to learn to give less from establishments that just take.
This was over 20 years ago, it was my last job, medically retired, and every job I had prior to this has the same thing, you had to be at your post at the start of your shift. It's no good arriving at work at 0900 if your shift starts at 0900. Arriving at 0900 by the time you have got yourself ready you could have easily wasted 15 minutes. Why does a colleague have any say on when you start and end?
OP replied. He really doesn't, but he's in a higher position within the department's hierarchy than I was and today am, and back then having been an apprentice, I pretty much had zero say in anything.
We have an electronic clock-in system. If I have to be there at 3:30, I clock in at 3 hours 30 minutes and 58 seconds. Still 3:30. Get a free minute every clock in.
OP replied. Yeah, works the same for us, though our clock does not show seconds so it can jump from 3:30 to 3:31 while we stamp in. It's also an electronic clock system with electronic cards and stuff.
Remember, any and all time putting on and taking off PPE is paid. So log when it's not, your lawyer will thank you. I see the compliance, I don't see the malice.
I used to think malicious compliance required malice, but that isn't mentioned in the description of the sub, and based on the comments to other posts I've read, if the results of the poster's compliance is unexpected and unwanted by the recipient, that is usually good enough a fit.
It's mentioned in Rule 1 though. Karma will bite this guy in the ass, trust me. It comes around. Seen it many times. Best thing you can do is do better. Go over and above. Do the greatest job. Get there earlier if you can. Show them you're in control still.
OP replied. I'm making his work life a living hell ever since having started apprenticeship there. He's constantly trying to tell everyone how to do their job and all, but I usually ignore him or, if it doesn't work, use malicious compliance until it completely backfires into his face. He always wants to be in control, that's all.
Since we aren't allowed to wear our work clothes outside of work, including the work commute, he wanted me to be early at work to change my clothes, to send a colleague off so they could change their clothes, while still logged in, and leave for home, while myself only collecting the time my shift is. So, he's looking for unpaid labor? What a charmer.